Hello everyone, this is Saurabh and today we are listening to the story of Lady Meng Jiang, which is among the four folk tales of China. The story is regarding the building of Great Wall, a time when it was built. It has many variations among Chinese folk. Until the 20th century, the Great Wall was seen as a symbol of despotism and cruelty among to its people because a lot of laborers were put to work and even died while building this wall. Especially, it was seen as being cruel to women. But during the Second Sino Japanese War, the Great Wall became the symbol of China's unity and the will to fight. So, let's hear the story of Lady Meng Jiang. The first emperor of Qin, or Qin Shi Huang, decided to join together the defensive walls of North China into the single Great Wall, Changcheng, which we know today as the Great Wall of China, in order to keep out the barbarians who lived in the north. Now, at that time, there lived a lad who was called Fan Shilong, who was everything that a hero in a love story looks like. He was filial and industrious, hardworking, pale and bookish, and even handsome and smart. He lived with his parents and devoted himself to their welfare and to his studies. Nearby, in the garden of family named Meng, a melon vine was growing, which somehow grew over the wall into the adjacent garden of a family named Jiang, where it produced a melon. When the melon ripened, the two families agreed to split it, but when they cut it open, they found a beautiful little girl who came to be known as the Meng Jiang girl or Meng Jiang Nü. Although some people believe of her as having a surname Meng and the personal name Jiang Nü, Meng Jiang Nü grew to be a very model of a storybook actress or heroine, filial and industrious, shy and virtuous, but also very smart and adept at writing poems and essays. Yes, very beautiful. Now, to complete the wall, which the emperor decided to join to keep out barbarians from the north, Emperor of Qin had conscripted hundreds of thousands of laborers and sent them to the north. Now, the work was hard, and injuries and deaths were very frequent. Fan Shilang lived in dread of being conscripted, not because he feared hard work, misery, or death, but because his father had no other son to carry on the family line. Now, one day soldiers come looking for more laborers, and Fan Shilang ran from the compound, broke into the garden, and hid himself. So, as this happened, he took refuge in the garden of the Meng family, where he was discovered when the Meng Jiang girl and her maid, lovely fragrance, Mei Xiang, came out to walk among the flowers. Now, she was horrified, or would have been if he had not been handsome and well spoken and pale enough that he was clearly an aspiring scholar. In the end, the Meng family agreed to conceal him and to let him work as a gardener, much increasing their daughter's interest in flowers. So, after a short time, old man Meng decided that Fan Shilang would be an appropriate son in law and consulted with the two young people. So, they readily agreed, and a date was set up for wedding. Some say it was the night of their wedding, some say it was 3 days later, but suddenly soldiers from the king appeared and seized Fan Shilang because he had evaded them earlier. He was to be sent to particularly burdensome and dangerous work on the wall in the vicinity of its eastern terminus, where it met the sea at Shanghai Quan. So another version say that Meng Jiang Nü had another suitor whom she didn't care for, but who had already made plans to marry her, a person named Chang, and that when she married Fan Shilang, Chang, in a fit of anger, tipped off the emperor's soldiers that Fan was available to be sent to build the wall. Now, Meng Jiang Nü had a white jade hairpin, and as they dragged her husband from the house, she broke it in two so that each of them would have a reminder that her heart was also pure and white. Days stretched to weeks and weeks to months. It was a long time, and Meng Jiang Nü heard nothing from her husband Feng Shilang. While there were tales that were continuously coming from the wall that thousands of people died from inhuman conditions. As winters came on, Meng Jiang Nü remembered that Feng Shilang had been abducted with only the summer clothes on his back. Some say she saw him in a nightmare, crying, "Cold, cold." She resolved to carry warm clothes to him at the wall. Now, her journey was very long and difficult, and she suffered a great deal. Some even say that she was close to death, but was aided by a fairy who nursed her back to life in a little house beside the road and then vanished. People also say that on the road she lost her way and was guided back to the right route by a flock of wild geese. And some say that as she walked along, she was swept up into a cloud, which carried her to the Great Wall and gently set her down there. Eventually, she reached the work site, and after extensive inquiries, she found her husband's work group, where she learned that her husband had died of exhaustion and starvation a month or two earlier and has been buried, with many others in the wall itself, because no one had the strength to dig them graves. A kind old man led her to the spot, where she screamed and wailed inconsolably for several days. She was so pathetic that all who heard were affected. The wall itself was perhaps moved by her, or by the force of the land and sea, or by heaven. In any case, the earth trembled, and the gigantic portions of the wall collapsed, and out tumbled the bones of those who had been interred within. Meng Jiang Nü remembered that her mother had told her that the blood of the living can identify the bones of the dead. So she pricked her hand and let blood fall upon the bones of the dead, until she found one body that reacted differently from the others. Absorbing her blood while the others shed it. Still sobbing, she scooped up Fan Shilang's remains to carry them out for a proper burial. Meanwhile, the first emperor of Qin had got word that somebody's hysterical wife was disrupting work at the wall, so he sent to have her arrested. But when he laid eyes on her, because she was very beautiful even in grief, the emperor's plan to punish her evaporated into lustful desire, and he decided to make her another of his many wives. How could she marry the man responsible for the death of her husband? But how could she resist the command of the emperor? So she persuaded him to agree to three conditions. First, a state funeral for her husband. Second, the first emperor himself as a humble mourner. And third, a 3-day excursion on the Po High Sea. The emperor at length agreed, for she was very beautiful. So a funeral was held, and Fan Shilang was buried in an elegant grave, with the emperor himself walking as a humble mourner. But during the excursion on the sea, Meng Jiang Nü suddenly jumped into the turbulent waters, where she was swallowed up by a great wave and never found again. Some people say that the wave was sent by the daughters of the Dragon King, who governs the sea, and that Meng Jiang Nü was carried away to dwell in the dragon place. But most people doubt that. For some storytellers, the tale does not end there. The emperor was furious, they say, and he himself beat the sea with his great and terrible whip for its rash temerity in depriving him of his new bride. In his rage, he whipped and whipped. The whipping troubled the Dragon King, always rather touchy about disturbance to his realm. So he sent one of his daughters to appear in the form of Meng Jiang Nü and try to steal the great and terrible whip. When he saw the false Meng Jiang Nü suddenly appear on the shore, the emperor was astonished, and his rage was instantly replaced and lust once again. For 100 days and nights, the Dragon King's daughter, looking like Meng Jiang Nü, tickled and snugged and giggled with the emperor until at last she had an opportunity to steal the whip. Then she plunged back into the sea and dutifully brought it to her royal father, leaving the horrid emperor sad and puzzled and eager to find some other petty girl to occupy his place. At Shanghai Huan today, there is a little temple to Meng Jiang Nü's memory, built in the northern Song dynasty 1200 years later. For no one could forget the woman whose wailing brought down the dreaded wall, and who used her own blood to identify her husband's bones.